Hi, welcome to our Spirituality of Sexuality course, which we are exploring sexual love as a spiritual experience. And today's topic is sexuality and the call to conversion. Sexuality and the call to conversion. We are trying to find, remember, we're trying to find spirituality in sexuality. And if we are going to find spirituality in sexuality, then we can use sexuality to convert people. People can come to God, to a deeper knowledge and a deep relationship with God through their sexuality. And this is what we have been trying to look at in the previous classes, where we saw in the history of sexuality that spirituality and sexuality were separated. They were separated, and as such, people would only find God in spirituality and looked at the body as sinful, as an obstacle to their relationship with God. The contemporary current thinking is actually the opposite. We can communicate to God through our bodies, and sexuality happens to be at the center of that heightened type of communication. It is the high voltage, if you like, way in which we can talk to God, in which we can communicate with the divinity. And so let us go to the slides and see what we have prepared for you. So the topic is sexuality and the call to conversion. Sex is an important bonding component in a marriage relationship. Sex is an important, and I should say a very important bonding component in a marriage relationship. It has great potential to make the married couple feel closer to each other. Through sex, a married couple may learn how to give each other affection and stimulate the sense of intimacy they need. So this is why we say marriage is a school of love. If there is any place where somebody can learn so easily what it is to love, it is marriage. And where love should be understood broadly, not just that nice tingling sensation, but including the painful way of living together with that lover, your spouse, your friend, how to overcome challenges together because of love. Therefore, at the heart of a good marriage relationship is a high possibility that it would bring about a conversion experience. Moreover, at the heart of an authentic religious experience is the power to love. If somebody says, I have a religious experience, a spiritual experience, at the bottom of that experience should be the capacity to love God and to love one's neighbor. You cannot say, I speak in tongues, I pray for 4 hours continuously, and yet you cannot talk to your brother, and yet you have no relationship with God, morally speaking, spiritually speaking. And so at the Strivens, as the Strivens explain, most couples come to greater understanding of God's grace and love through the experience of their partner's love for them. For the Strivens, marriage is a school of love where a couple tries to love in a way that is accepting, compassionate, forgiving, joyful, and reconciliation. Now, marriage should not be something to be rushed into. Somebody must be prepared that this person that I'm getting married to, I'm marrying, will be accepting, should have shown already some compassionate, is a forgiving person, is a joyful person, and you're able to reconcile. Once you get married, you simply have to put into effect those expectations. It's not a time to cultivate. It's not a time to learn how to be compassionate, how to be forgiving. You must be a forgiving person already. Otherwise, this is where people try to say, no, I never married this person. Why? Because you didn't open up to the other to see what is it that you are, that you like, etc. We continue. Their experience is that marriage brings into reality entire lessons one has learned about love from parents, from teachers or priests. Now, this is again very important, that marriage is a place where we offload every imagination about love, every expectation, apprehensions. This is where things just begin to flow. We continue. It follows that husband and wife radiate the love of God to the world around them whenever they love each other. Thomas confirms that this idea, as he argues for Christian marriage as a symbol, sacrament of God's presence, love, and power in the world. So what is marriage? Marriage is God's presence, the love that God has, the power of God in the world. Wow. Now that should be a very big conclusion for our friend Thomas. God can be felt in this world through marriage. God's power of love can be experienced in this world through the married couples. And then we continue. Gialadis affirms this notion as he views marriage as a spiritual space wherein the couple can work out their salvation. He adds that marriage invites one to the difficult yet necessary Paschal movement from life to death to new life. Let's look at that again. Marriage invites one to the difficult yet necessary Paschal movement from life to death to new life. So marriage is a full bouquet, full package of what it is to live in this world. So by the sacred rhythm of life, death, life, Gailades asserts that marriage demands change at the core of one's being. This is now where we are saying you need to be converted, and marriage can bring about that conversion. He compares marriage to consecrated celibacy in a way that it also demands, for instance, that a person renounces goods. Thus, he helps us to understand and appreciate that there is more to marriage than the romantic view the media presents to us. In fact, he calls it as an ascetic vocation. Marriage, an ascetic vocation, meaning in marriage you become a very highly focused person, a person that allows oneself to renounce, to denounce certain things that only fit into my life. I want to be there for the other, and if that I am going to do that, then I have to be ascetical. We continue. Related to the notion of conversion experience is the capacity to love one's neighbor. Your spouse becomes your neighbor. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second is like it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So who is the neighbor who is in need, like the Good Samaritan? It's your spouse who needs your help. This is the experience of the Strivens, whose 37 years of married life has brought them to conclude that married couples whose love for each other shows the qualities of God's love affect many people besides themselves. What you experience, I explain, what you experience in marriage should affect the people around you. You cannot just be so much engrossed in each other's arms, have that joy of of communion as a couple, and yet be so bad, so evil, so negative to the people around you. No. Marriage should make you a loving person in the community. They say that marriage is not simply a relationship between two people, but it is also a relationship of creativity and service for others. They also testify that they have met couples in their ministry whose love for each other radiates out to the wider community in ways that are uplifting and life-giving. This is a sign that sexuality in marriage can bring about a religious conversion, whereby two people begin to see beyond themselves and their family. Because of what I explained, because of what you are going through as a married person, you begin to see yourself at the service of the community. You become more loving, joyful, understand. In fact, for me, marriage should easily bring about the fruit of the Holy Spirit. What is the fruit of the Holy Spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The nine fruit of the Holy Spirit can be easily be experienced in the marriage relationship. Marriage should help you become more loving. How do you love? Caring. Marriage makes you more kind. Marriage should make you joyful. Talk about the ecstasy during the conjugal act. Marriage should bring you that peace. Okay, sex is a healing activity that should calm your nerves, so it helps you to become peaceful. It helps you to become a faithful, self-controlled person. You learn all these things in marriage. Marriage should make you reach out to the other. So another experience of conversion is the ability to surrender totally to the person one loves. Now, this is very deep. Unless you have gone through this marriage experience, you don't know what it is to surrender totally to one person. Nakedness is total surrender, where your privacy, most of us want to be private, and that is why we talk about private parts. But here are two people living in a relationship where the private parts become the contact aspects of themselves. Newman talks about intimacy and sexuality. For him, love is limitless and calls for a total surrender of those involved in it, whereby enabling them to bear fruit. Newman also talks about the need for total disarmament of a relationship if a relationship is to bring about freedom. Total disarmament, meaning you have to disarm yourself from those things that make you very protective about oneself. He concludes that religion and sexuality, which in the past have been so often described as opponents, merge into one and the same reality when they are seen as an expression of the total self-surrender in love. Wow, that is powerful. It is interesting to note that for Newman, the human person has to learn to come out of the structure of taking and learn how to give, for love is about giving as well as receiving. In marriage, you begin to think about giving much more than receiving. You see, when the married come together in the sexual act, making love, the objective of enjoying the sexual act is in giving. You want to give the best to the other. You don't want to receive. In fact, the one that makes the other come first is the winner. If you come first, you are the loser. So each one is making it a goal that I make the other come first. So sexuality invites us to move toward another person. That's deep. Just like what happens in sexual attraction, it is in directing this energy towards giving that life. That life emerges for new life and fulfillment for those who cooperate to give life. That is how we are born. That is how we come into existence. It's because there was an attraction between these two people who were my father, my mom. Other writers go even further to propose that happiness in this world is dependent on one having a healthy sexuality. That's very deep. Happiness in this world is dependent on one having a healthy sexuality. So if there is confusion, if there is anarchy, if there is violence in this world, it's because we have not paid attention and we have not invested so much in this area of our existence called sexuality. Happiness in this world is dependent on one having a healthy sexuality. For Roy Hazer, a healthy sexuality means to be in possession of that principle of life itself, that is the drive for love, communion, community, friendship, family, affection, wholeness, consummation, creativity, self-perpetuation, immortality, joy, delight, humor, and self-transcendence. Now, all this is experienced in sexuality. He also believes that sexuality lies in the center of the spiritual life, and as such, a healthy sexuality is the single most powerful vehicle there is for leading us to selflessness and joy. Just as unhealthy sexuality helps constellate selfishness and unhappiness, as does nothing else. Wow, this is very powerful. So the conversion experience that sexuality brings about in marriage can also be looked at from the point of view that we experience God through one another. Kimmerling makes a strong relationship between the experiences of human personal love with the personal dimension of God's love. She says that the experience of being loved, accepted, redeemed, and freed from the personal love of a spouse becomes also an experience of being loved, accepted, and redeemed and freed by the personal love of Christ. Humanity needs humanity. And through the human experience, we learn about divine love. How can we talk about loving whom we have never seen, God, except through the experience of the one that I have seen, the one that is tangible? And so it follows, if there is anybody that can highly talk about the love of Christ, is the one that has deeply, materially, spiritually experienced sexual love. For her, marriage grounds a person's real spiritual experience, because the existence of something which was hidden, implicit, a matter of faith, and indeed often of doubt, can no longer be doubted because it has been experienced in real life. I explain again. Marriage gives us an opportunity to experience real life. Then, like Thomas in the resurrection story, the person loved realizes that they do not need to touch the wound of love for a proof. So marriage gives you an opportunity to remove doubts. Marriage is an opportunity for one to experience the tangible aspect of love, God's love. So this is why we are saying sexual love has a capacity to call us to conversion. Now, why has this been hidden from us? We saw in the history of sexuality where from the book of Genesis that our ancestors failed God in obedience. We don't know. It shouldn't have been anything to do with sexuality, but that is what the church fathers, attributed. Talk about St. Augustine, who coined the sexual experience as the one of eating the fruit, that Adam ate the fruit. So that is the problem that we are going to struggle with, and perhaps eternally continue to struggle with. But I project that in the next years, there will be total liberation of sexuality. People will come to understand what sex is all about. And medically speaking, it might even become a prescription in the context of marriage. If one has a headache, migraine headache, one is going through a depression, this is where people should research. How can we help the other in a deep relationship? So what people need is to put in structures of things that help a young boy and a girl fall in love and be helped to stay in love. There's one lady who has formed an organization called Boy Empowerment International, where the emphasis is put on the boy child, because often we have focused on the girl child. So when we focus on the boy child, we discover that the boy child has got the capacity to change things because he's expected to be a leader. But if he's not taught how to manage his house, his home, how to be a husband, a leader, a head of the family, how can he become a head of a company as a director? How can he be a member of parliament? How can he be a councillor, a mayor? How can he be a good head of state if he has not learned how to look after his own emotions? How he has never been taught how to be in a relationship with a woman. Is an abuser, so he will abuse his fellow colleagues at the place of work, anywhere. When we are taught how to be kind to one another, you will see it through the bus conductor, who is very kind. You will see it in the driver. You will see it in the plumber who comes to repair your leakage, the pipes, the way he greets you. You will see it in a nurse taking care of you, even if she's very tired and working under harsh conditions. Those experiences do not make her a bad person, but actually makes her even more understanding and more present to her patients. A doctor who is working overtime all the time should not become a bad person, but begins to even become better. Jesus did not have time to rest. Whenever he wanted to rest, the people would follow him. And that is when he would begin to talk to them and allowed his apostles to rest. It was because he worked overtime that he would eventually walk on the water, giving us the miracle that he was the Son of God. He was God, who would allow not water to consume him, but be above everything. So I'd like to release a special blessing upon you, especially those that are married, that this course may bring revival, may bring a restoration to those areas of your lives that may have grown dull, that you begin to look into your marriage and find God. God is 100% fully present through the other. And in that sexual act, you can find God so easily than in the dining and than working in the garden. Let your bedroom be a place of rendezvous en français, a place of appointment to meet divinity. So from me, it's ciao. God bless you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for following our class. Bye.